For Therapy Thursday, our weekly broadcast on mental health topics. Therapy Thursday is brought to you by Affinity Counseling Services and A Lovely Pause. This is a test.
Affinity Counseling Services is located in Piggott, Arkansas and Kennett, Missouri. We currently have 4 therapists in our office and are taking new clients. To join our waiting list, visit counselingwithaffinity.com. And to find out more, you can call me, Kindred, at 870-324-5122 or 573-840-0440. Thank you.
A Lovely Pause is a locally... Repeat. A Lovely Pause is a local nonprofit created to provide community education, awareness, coping skills, and support to people with PTSD and other trauma-related disorders. This month, subscribers to our newsletter will receive a free emotion meter. Use this free tool to gauge your emotions, identify triggers, and list coping skills that work for you. Sign up at A Lovely Pause, PAUSE.com, or visit us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube.
We sounded good.
Yeah, we did.
Running the intro.
Therapy Thursday normalizes discussing mental health topics in a safe, supportive environment because not being normal is normal.
Welcome, everyone, to Therapy Thursday, our weekly installment here at Affinity Counseling Services, where we talk about different mental health topics from a personal and professional perspective. My name is Matthew Yount, lead therapist and president here at Affinity Counseling. To my right is our marketing director, Stacy,
Hello.
who is also the vice president of A Lovely Pause.
Indeed.
And on camera today...
I am on camera today.
See, now you're messing up my intro because I said, as always, behind the camera, and now today you're actually joining us, Kindred.
In the camera.
It's Kindred. You guys have never seen her. And this is her.
This is me.
She runs the show behind the scenes, but today she's on the scene.
And running this show.
And running the show, too. She's very talented.
Mm-hmm.
And we're so glad for everyone to
all
see
the-
your face.
Doing all the things.
All
All
the-
the things.
All the things.
Well, thank you for doing all the things, Kindred. We do appreciate it. And I'm glad you're joining us. How'd you talk her into it?
It
I
didn't
just
take
decided
much. Yeah,
to-
Wow.
she
Hey,
did.
you're expanding your horizons.
I know.
And today, in front of a live studio audience,
Oh, yeah, we
Yeah.
have a guest joining us today who's behind the scenes. Hello, Tony.
You want to talk in the microphone, Tony?
Hello.
Tony.
Thank you. That'll be all.
Yeah. Tony's watching from behind the scenes today.
Yeah, and so Andrea, unfortunately, is out today. She is not feeling well. The downsides of having an autoimmune disease is that every now and then it kicks in and kicks your butt. So I hope you're feeling better, honey. But
Yes,
we'll have
feel-
you on next week.
Feel better soon. I really wish she was here for this conversation too, because
Oh, yeah.
this conversation is something that her and I and we've all talked about a lot. Talking with teens.
Yes, and so we've had to do that a lot this week. We've had teenage drama in our household, and so we've had to practice a lot. I guess I've gotten good training for this subject today. That's why the Lord dropped this on me, I guess. It's like, hey, you need to get some experience for your topic that you're talking about. So here you go. Talk to that teen.
Thanks, God. It's just what I wanted. More experience.
All right, so it is Teen Mental Health Month, and we are talking about today really the complexities of talking to a teenager. So let's just go ahead and lay it out there, very beginning. What makes it so hard to talk to a teenager?
You just don't understand what it's like. You're old, and I'm not, and the world's different now. And
I'm going to assume hormone changes
Yes.
Yeah.
are the reason.
Well, it's kind of like we see the cliche idea that they look at us like we don't understand, which perhaps they do. I don't know if my kids have the idea that I don't understand. I just think sometimes they want to do what they want to do, and they don't want to involve us because we're going to tell them that it's a bad idea.
Yeah.
And so, go ahead.
I want a prerequisite. That was totally teasing. I do think it is a different kind of world that they're in today. Like, there is so much more that's different. There's a lot of things that are we can relate to for sure, but the world is a bit different. But yeah, it's
But that is what a lot of teenagers, though. A lot of teenagers do have the perception that their parents don't understand. Mine can't throw that at me. I work with teenagers, I have worked with teenagers a lot, and I have sat them down and go, okay, let me guess. Here's what's going on. And I've laid it out for them, and they're like, yeah. That's it. I'm like, see, I told you. You can't tell me I don't understand because I can spit right out to you what's going on and what's probably going to happen, and you're going to see it happen right in front of you. So you can't tell me I don't understand. But a lot of people, especially teenagers, do feel like their parents don't understand them, or because their parents don't make an effort to really try to understand them.
How we talk to them makes them feel understood or not understood.
Absolutely. And you help take care of a teenager, and you help with your sister a lot.
Yeah, I do.
Now, you're much younger. I mean, you're in your early 20s. So I don't know if you get a lot of you just don't understand.
No, and she usually comes to me to talk about things.
Yeah, I thought it's good. So how do you try to cultivate a relationship like that with a teenager?
That's a good question. I mean, I don't really.
Obviously, she trusts you for some reason.
It's just, I guess we connect on a lot of things. I don't know how to explain.
No, it's fine.
It's easy to get along with her, but if I was trying to get along with another teenager, I don't know. I don't know how that would go.
Oh, you get along with our son Jack really well.
Yeah.
I mean,
He
you're
likes
obviously
me.
easy to get along with. I think
Maybe it's a personality trait.
I would say that it is. Well, I mean, you have a part of you that's very non-judgmental.
Yeah.
When it comes to people's situations.
That's what I was about to say. Is I try not to be judgmental. I usually try to be optimistic first, and then when we've ran through all of that, then I'm like, well, maybe.
Yeah, so maybe here's some things we could talk about that you could do differently. Not judging, just providing some possible solutions here. So, okay. So that's probably the number one thing to start with. It's one of the hardest, especially if it's your kid. It's hard to be non-judgmental because you want to react and you want to smack them upside the head and you want to be like, what the heck were you thinking? Especially if they're making decisions that you made as a teenager that were bad decisions. If you see them repeating your mistakes, you're like, don't do that. That's a trap. Stop. And you want to yell at them or get on to them, especially if you didn't want it to happen. You're like, I'm not going to let that happen to my kids. Cause
Some mistakes, I'm like, yeah, don't do that. Some of them, I'm like, I learned from myself from doing that. I don't know. I feel like me and my sister are the same on. Sometimes we have to learn the hard way.
Yes. Yes, and it is not, and that's another good point. It's not bad to let your kids learn some hard lessons. They need to learn some of these lessons. And a lot of times they're not going to come to you until the lesson gets too difficult because they're wanting to try to handle these things on their own. And reliable, I get that. I get that they want to be reliant on themselves. They want to feel like they're adult, and they want to feel like that they can handle some of these things. And you kind of want to let them. You don't want to make all their decisions for them.
No.
So you don't want to set them down and go, okay, here's exactly what you should do in every situation. They need some trial and error.
Right.
They just don't need to get themselves so deep into a situation that it's going to be incredibly difficult to get them out of it, or there's going to be severe consequences because of the decisions that they've made. So, sometimes things like issues with breakups or drama or friend problems, those things happen so often in teenage relationships.
Yeah.
Because so many people in high school are jockeying for some level of power that doesn't even really exist, but to them it does because that's the only world they know. But they're working towards trying to figure out where they fit in. And in that time, they're going to make a lot of errors in judgment. So if you know your teenager is making an error in judgment, but they have not come to you yet, you've just heard about it, how do you approach that situation?
Well, that can be a tricky one depending on the situation, because you don't want to like give away who's your intel, right? Like,
Yeah.
because you might need that intel for future purposes.
Don't give away your narc.
Right. So sometimes you got to go around that situation, right? Like asking questions that might lead down that road without being too obvious, right? Like it can be sometimes that it depends on the situation.
It does.
though.
I know. Because some things
Sometimes
you just want to
gotta be
kick down the
direct.
door and like, all right, here's what I heard. Are you doing it or not?
100%. Yeah. Sometimes directness is like, it's like, no, the situation is going to get handled right now.
Yeah.
Like we are going to discuss this right now. But sometimes, like you were saying, Kindred, like you've got to give them that opportunity to learn from that experience and have that heavy fall that you can see coming a mile away, but
Yeah.
like they are
Just expect it.
Yeah.
Brace for impact.
right. And sometimes I guess maybe you just kind of like don't say anything if the situation's not going to be detrimental enough. That's one of those. But like with drug use and sex and things like that, I mean, those are obvious, like being
Life-threatening ones.
Life-changing or
Yes.
life-threatening, yep.
Yeah.
100%. And that's for me with my kids. We were always like we were very direct and like as far as like having these conversations ahead of time and like talking very openly about it. Like with the sex conversation, we started that one probably about 11 or 12, and it kind of not full on conversations, but it
Right,
started
but it's
at
like
that
those
age.
the books that you can get and things like that that are like they talk about changes in their body and stuff like that.
Yeah, and like so it wasn't a taboo topic.
Yeah,
I think that's probably the biggest thing.
that's a good point. Not to make things taboo.
Right, because I think a lot of times you shut down those lines of communication if they feel like, oh, well, I can't even talk about it because they're going to get like weird or mad or whatever. Well, we were talking about drugs and sex and things like that. When, like they were preteens and kind of having appropriate level conversations about things that were going to be coming up in their lives, things that they might see other friends doing, things that we experienced whenever we were teenagers, and just having kind of real conversations about it. And I'm not saying they came to us every time that those situations presented themselves in their lives,
Right.
but we set good groundwork for where they did feel comfortable enough to talk to us when it came time to make bigger decisions
Yeah.
in their lives.
Well, I think that's a key point. Is you don't want to make anything taboo. It doesn't mean that you're approving of it. It just means that you don't want to make them feel like it's about to be a very bad conversation if they even bring it up.
Right.
Like there should not be subjects with your kids that are off topic to talk about in most circumstances. I mean, there may be some questions about personal life stuff that they don't need to know, but they're probably not going to ask anyway. But there's going to be things that they need to know that they can come to you if there's situations that they don't understand how to handle or that they're just confused about. They need to know that it's okay that my parents aren't going to bite my head off if I just bring up this topic
Right.
or get weird on me or anything like that. And I think the other part of that too, I think it kind of goes hand in hand, is don't lie to them.
Right.
Because a lot of people try to use lies as a fear tactic to keep kids from doing certain things. Like, I'm not against like the DARE program and things like that, but in the 80s and 90s, that was their way of doing it, was to like just tell them that you use drugs once and you're going to get addicted and here's what's going to happen to you. And then eventually kids grow up and they use drugs once and they're like, well, I'm not homeless. I'm not selling my body on the street. I'm not a full-blown addict. I'm not having to like break into homes to get my fix. Did they lie to me? And then so they just keep taking things further because they don't feel like that the authority figures in their lives were actually being truthful.
Right. Because that's an age anyway that they're questioning authority anyway. I mean, it's like a biological impulse at that point for them to start defining their own identities. And so whenever the the figures in their lives that have been, giving them the matrix to live their lives by, and they realize like, oh, well, this is not what everybody's been saying, you know? And so like, what else isn't what everybody's been saying? Let me test all the boundaries as hard as I can, instead of like being real, like, because then they have a more realistic view of what the world is and like what those falls look like.
Yeah, sure. So like a common one that people will lie about is like alcohol use, and they'll tell people like, you're going to become an alcoholic, or that they'll give them all of these like things that'll like just try to paint it to be the worst thing possible, hoping the kid will stay away from it. And to me, the best route to go about is like, well, there's a reason people use alcohol. And some of it is because they're an addict. Yes, that is true. But other people use it because they have a good time with it and it feels good. But there is a cost that comes with it, and you need to understand that. The cost is you can make bad decisions when you're on it. The cost is you're going to feel like crap the next day after you've used it, and it's going to get expensive over time. And it's just, if you're a person who's trying to live by a certain ethic or code or religion, then being intoxicated all the time may go against that, and you want to talk to them about your tenets of your faith or your code of living. But you don't want to just try to lay out, well, here's all the negative things and there's no positives to it whatsoever, because there's obviously a reason that people use these things, and that's what they're going to go try to find out.
That is exactly it. So like, I feel like when we totally demonize and taboo something, like, they're going to see their friends partaking and doing these things, and it's going to look like a really good time, because you know what? Some of that stuff's a really good time. And like, if we're just over here, like, just preaching all the negative qualities, yeah, tell them like, the risk associated with things, but also like, be real. Like,
yeah, sure.
I mean, we were all teenagers once too. And like, in our area, it's very rural. There's not a whole lot to do. So like, shoot, I remember bonfire parties and things like that. I mean, that's
it's a staple around here.
it is.
It is of a way of living. Yes,
it is. It's part of the culture. And so like, if we're just demonizing that, then it goes underground, and then they quit talking to you.
Yeah.
And when you're not the person that they're coming to having real conversation with, they're getting all their information from their friends who
will
not
tell
have
them
the
wrong.
best information.
Yeah, I will say this. No one ever taught me about alcohol use until my friends taught me about it on spring break. And that was the worst idea ever, because my friends were not interested in my well-being. No. My friends were interested in the sideshow that was going on, and they were only fueling it further. And I had no idea what was in store for me until I got too deep. And so no one ever taught me about responsible use. They just like, don't do it, it's bad. Or just never came up in real conversation because people around me didn't really drink. So I learned a very bad lesson that probably could have ended way worse than it actually did. It could have ended up me with a hospital, as bad as it got. But you have to be able to teach people will also think this. They'll think, well, if you're not telling them all the bad stuff, or you're telling them like just there's good qualities to it too, or there's things that aren't so bad, then you're condoning it. And to me, it's like, I'm not telling you can do this. I will tell my kids, because I'm educating you on this, it doesn't mean I'm giving you permission to go do this. I find out you're drinking, you're still going to get in trouble.
Right.
Yeah. So, but if you end up drinking and have a bad experience and you need someone to come get you, tell me. You'll be in less trouble. If you're just honest with me and you tell me this is what's going on. We lay down the rules of, if you lie to us, that's when you're in the most trouble.
100%.
If you'll just be honest with us, we'll have a real conversation with you. There'll be some judgment that's put out there in the sense of there's going to be some consequences, but we're not here to try to tell you you're a horrible person and that we're just going to ground you for months on end. You're probably going to get some grounding. But if you lie to us, that's when you're going to make it where we can't trust you. And if we can't trust you, you're going to have very few privileges for a while.
Exactly.
And so if we lay that out there, we get a lot more conversation. So like even last night with one of my kids, I had said, hey, heard something. I'm just going to put it out there. The way you respond to this is going to be very important, so you need to respond honestly. And I asked, and then they eventually said, okay, one time. And I was like, okay, that's all I needed to know. You're not in trouble at the moment, but don't ever let me hear that again, and just please don't get into, so it was just more the having the conversation so that they could be open, and they felt open enough to tell me, okay, all right, one instance, this happened. And I was like, okay, I got you. So as long as you're not making a habit out of this, you're not doing it again, fine. But it's not okay, but I'm not going to just squash you right here because at least you were open with me that you made a mistake, so we can have a conversation about this. And then there's a learning that comes along with that conversation.
Right, and that's where you get into those. We were talking about this, I think, episode or two ago, that like we're training our kids at this age up to be adults and standing on their own 2 feet and living their own lives. And I feel like people that parent from the angle of like trying to over monitor everything and like really demonize one thing or another to where topics become taboo and get pushed underground, they're not setting their kids up to really be able to face what life is going to be like when those kids are standing on their own, because when we talk to them openly and honestly, like there's consequences, good or bad, and you're helping them to decide those paths, which ones they want to choose. They're still in the driver's seat for a lot of those decisions, and they're owning that more when you're getting to have these real conversations with them, and that's, I think, setting them up for success
Right.
for later on in
I
life.
would agree. So there are times where you're going to have to approach your kid first, though, because they're not telling you something. And so what I guess maybe on your end, Kindred, it's easier because maybe your parents or somebody say, hey, she's in trouble for this. And you're like, okay, well, now that's an easy thing to talk to her about. But,
I'm not the direct authority figure.
Right. Yeah. So you're the person that she can come talk to when the authority figures have either overreacted or laid down a law or maybe reacted appropriately, but she still needs somebody to talk to. And then in our circumstance, it's got to be like, I look for a few things. I look for changes in mood or behavior. Does the kid seem more distant, like they're preoccupied with something in their mind? Do they seem like they're more depressive or more anxious than normal? Because if that's the case, then I may start, prying a bit. And like, all right, look, you seem a little more anxious, depressed, nervous, whatever it is. There's something going on. If they talk to me, then great. If they say no, everything's fine, then I start to look for changes in behavior that would give me a way in to talk to them more. Maybe like they skip school or they're not doing their homework or something like that. Now, that's the thing I can go at them with. Like, all right, whatever's going on with you, you're obviously not handling it well, and you're starting to cross some boundaries that aren't good. So you're either not doing your homework, you're skipping school, you're being harder to deal with at home, you're not finishing your chores. It's no longer an option. So we're sitting down and talking. So tell me as much as you want, but we're talking. And I've had to sit there with my teenager and just stare at, both the girls at this point, and haven't had to do it with Jack yet, but is just stare at them and go, I'm staying until you talk. So this is going to get real awkward and real boring, one of the two. And as long as I sit there and do that, usually they don't have good resolve. So in about 15 minutes of just looking at me, they're finally like, fine, he ain't going away. So they talk. And then once they finally talk and open up, they typically feel better and we get something out of them. But I've only been able to do that because I've set myself in enough ways to build up enough trust with them and enough consistency that, one, they know I'm not really going anywhere. I really will sit there until they talk. Yeah. And so they're not going to outlast me. They already know that. And then, two, they trust me enough that they just have to get past the uncomfortableness of talking about the uncomfortable subject in order to actually bring it up, and then we'll be okay. So sometimes that pressure just gets them to where they're like, fine, this feels worse than talking about it, so I'll just talk about it.
Right.
And then they start talking, and I do my best not to overreact in any circumstance and just listen to them.
Yes, so that's a good key point there too, is when they are actually communicating these very challenging topics with you that maybe you really want to respond intensely to. for reasons we've said before. Maybe it's something you did in your past and it's triggering, or it's something that's super stupid and like Captain Obvious, like, oh my God, what
were you thinking?
What the heck? Don't respond that way. Do your very best to like get your poker face on, like seem cool, calm, and collected, even if it's inside you are internally screaming a
Yes.
little bit.
And you can tell them that. You can go, look, I will tell you right now, I don't like hearing this. It does bother me, and it bothers me because either I did that as a kid and it turned out really bad, or I'm always afraid that that might happen to one of my kids. You can tell them what you're really thinking and feeling. You just can't overreact in a way that is going to shut them down.
Right.
They need to know you're having a hard time with it, because that's you being open and honest with your feelings too. And like, okay, I'll just tell you, this subject is uncomfortable for me. I don't know how to talk about it, but we're going to try. Or, hey, this triggers me because of things that have happened in my past, but I still want to have the conversation with you. So if I seem a little nervous or anxious or frustrated, that's why.
Yeah.
So you being vulnerable with them too helps them open up.
100%. So don't overreact. Be real and open and vulnerable, because that's going to allow them that space to do so also.
Yeah, and share some of your own stupidity. You know, I'd do that. You know, I will tell them, look, here's the mistakes I made.
Right.
You know, I've had one of my kids that, like, you know, maybe doesn't pick the best relationships. And I've told them, I said, hey, look, it's not like I did either. I was like, I always picked people that were like emotionally unavailable and wanted to friend zone me. So I can tell you, I ain't always picked the best people either. So it's not like that you're the only one who's ever picked a bad person to be in a relationship with. I done plenty of it myself.
Right.
And then, of course, then Andrea usually pop up, me too, and then she'll talk about hers. So letting them know we made mistakes, plenty of them. We do understand to a point where you're coming from.
Right.
So but good thing is, since you also know us, you know that we're pretty well-adjusted people now. So we did find ways to overcome those, and we do have some information we can provide to help you get
Yes.
past those things.
100%. So like bridging that gap of you just don't understand me, the way that you help them to feel like you do is by being real and open and honest, and giving those like life experiences, because like those are 100% relevant to the things going on in their life, because while the world is different now than when we were teenagers, there's a lot of stuff that's the same.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
A lot of situations there and that we were also
Yeah.
finding ourselves in.
Yeah, so that way you don't seem unapproachable.
Right.
You know, my kids have seen pictures of me from parties where I was in my 20s, you know, and I look like an idiot. But, you know, and they laugh at it. They're like, is this you? This is so stupid. What was wrong with you?
Oh, thank goodness there weren't cell phones back
I know,
then, right?
But, you know, they were like just pictures that we took on spring break or whatever. And I was like, yes, okay, that was a time in my life that, while fun, also had major consequences to it, too. I'm not telling you that you should go do those things. But, yes, that was me. So I do have information about that type of lifestyle. Should you ever like want to ask questions, I'll be honest with you. So they at least know that I'm just not somebody who's like, now they see me as this responsible dad who's who lives a Christian lifestyle to the best of his capabilities, and so they just see me as that person, and they don't know that I was this guy that was like partying or screwing up or making bad decisions, getting in terrible relationships. They don't know that part of me. And I'm like, I know that part of me, and I can tell you it exists. So I can happily give you information that will help you either like better navigate things like that so you don't make those bad decisions, or help teach you how to get out of them the right way should you find yourself in one of those bad circumstances, because I have knowledge.
Yeah, I think that's a trap that we put for ourselves sometimes as adults, is like this feeling like we've got to project that we've got it all together and we're all knowing about like all the things that you need to be doing as a young person. And I was, because I was a young mom, like I was very honest about those things. Like, I mean, I was a teen mom, and I was like, from an early age with the girls, I was like talking to them about like, you know, making better choices so that their life path was not, you know, the same as what my life path was, and being very real, because like, you know, we don't have it all together. We don't know everything just because we're grown.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll say that, if you've got a teen that you're having issues with, or you just don't know how to communicate well with your teen, we're pretty rad. We're pretty hip. We can speak the teen lingo. We're here to help. You know what's sad is I don't even know any teen lingo at the moment, other than sus. I know what sus means. That's about it anymore. And
Do you really know, though?
I know it means like suspect, and that's like short for suspect. Like, so that's like that is right, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Sure.
Yes.
I was going to say, unless the terms have changed, because I thought Netflix and chill meant Netflix and chill.
Oh no, it does
No,
not.
it does not.
It does not mean that.
Okay, yeah. Didn't know that until recently, y'all. I've been saying I was Netflix and chilling about a lot of stuff. Didn't know.
Well, now you do.
Now I do. Yep.
You didn't know? I thought when you were saying that you were making a joke. Literally. Like,
Yeah.
every time you said it, I was like, huh. Like,
I was really like, I was chilling with Netflix on, but it wasn't what I thought it was.
So we're here to help. Reach out to us on our Facebook page, Affinity Counseling Services, AFFINITY. You can message us there. You can also contact us at our Arkansas office at 870-324-5122 or our Missouri office at 573-840-0440. Yep.
Yes.
So many zeros in that one. And you can sign up, which is where we're going to direct you to anyway if you call us, to counselingwithaffinity.com. We have our sign-up sheet updated there, and you can sign up there. And we actually prefer you do that because that makes it a little bit easier for us. But if you got questions, call us or message us. That's fine too. So those are the best ways to reach us if you want services. So next week we'll be talking about helping navigate trauma. And helping kids and teens talk about that. So, anything else, Kindred, before we go?
no.
All right, cool.
Oh, hang on,
Wait.
Tony. Did we have something? Did you have something to add? No.
Yeah, he's
No?
good.
He's good.
Okay. All right. Never mind.
All right, cool. See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.